So with all that, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Baldwin to you, and I don't really have to give any introduction. I think everyone knows pretty much all about what this man has done. And my friend and your pastor and the American patriot, Dr. Chuck Baldwin. Come on up. And oh, come on. Please be seated. Ask Dr. Baldwin, too, if you would open us in prayer before you begin.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Well, since you were standing, let's stand again. If we're going to approach the throne of God, we ought to be standing. Heavenly Father, thank you for the day that you've given us. Thank you for these who have assembled here. Thank you for what Jack McManus and so many others in the John Birch Society are doing to help return America to constitutional government. Thank you for these that are here for this meeting. I trust and pray that you would guide our thoughts, our words, our actions tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. Be seated. I thank you very much for letting me participate in the program tonight. I'm delighted to be able to share the platform with someone such as Jack McManus. Ken Lamb, good to see you again. Haven't seen you in a while. You're looking well, sir. Glad you can make it tonight. Wilson Robertson, good to see you as always. And the others that are here, so many of you I know outside the church family, many in the John Birch Society locally, have been friends of mine for a long time, and I thank God for you and for what you're doing. I don't know if most of you probably know, although if you do know, you didn't find out by reading the newspaper, that there was an election last year in which I participated. And I traveled over 30,000 miles and visited over 30 states, and I did it in 4 months' time. During that whirlwind campaign, I had the opportunity to speak literally to thousands of people and to meet some of the really great patriots in this country. Some I had only heard of through reputation, others I had not known at all. But I had the opportunity to meet so many of these folks. Some of them are high-ranking military personnel, retired and active duty. Some are in or out of government. Some of these are in the private sector, in business, or the media. But I had the opportunity to go around the country, and everywhere I went, I said the same thing. You know, that's one thing about telling the truth. You don't have to worry about what you said at the last place and what you're going to say at the next place, and whether or not it's going to be popular here or popular there. I never spoke to try and please the crowd. I always spoke to try and be faithful to the truth. And fortunately, I discovered that there still are in these United States of America literally thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and dare I say even millions of freedom-loving Americans that have not yet bowed the knee to Baal. I found men and women that really did understand what the Constitution is all about, who really do understand American history and our heritage, etc. And it was my delight to be able to speak to them, and even to some who were not as knowledgeable as they maybe could have been, to, I think, inspire some of them to dig deeper into the well of our heritage, our history, our form of government, etc. Most of the major news, radio talk shows, newscasters, etc., for the most part, ignored us. We were on C-SPAN 3 or 4 times. I did participate in national debates with Ralph Nader and Bob Barr. We also had the opportunity to appear on the Lou Dobbs show. I'm thankful to Lou for at least letting us come on. That's more than any of the others did. And we had the opportunity to talk to him about something that's near and dear to his heart, as it is to mine, and that's the subject of illegal immigration. And I'm really glad. I think that the circumstances could have been better, and I'm not real pleased with the way that President Bush handled it. It should have been done, in my opinion, much differently. But at least I'm grateful that Ramos and Campion, those two brave Border Patrol agents that were incarcerated by the Bush administration for trying to defend our country's borders and uphold our laws, at least they are finally going home. If I had been elected president, though, they would have been not only going home, they would have been going back to work, and Johnny Sutton, the U.S. attorney that put him in jail, he would be looking for work. What a disgrace to the American country and our form of government, to liberty and justice that man proved himself to be. But we went everywhere talking about illegal immigration. In fact, I was privileged to be able to go to the border there just south of San Diego and see the busiest legal border in our country. I met with the customs people and the Border Patrol people. I was even given the VIP tour. Can you believe it? They actually did that. I got to see the whole thing from the inside, and it really was an amazing revelation to me. I came away with that really appreciative of what our Border Patrol people and our customs people are doing on the border. Let me tell you, the reason that we don't have a handle on illegal immigration has nothing to do with the valiant effort or lack thereof by our Border Patrol and customs people. They are literally giving it everything they have. They're doing their very best to protect our country. The problem is not the agents on the border. The problem is the administration, past and present, that has no intention on closing our borders to illegal immigration. That's the problem. And the reason for that is because open borders facilitates the New World Order that they are helping to create. But I had a chance to see that and to get the inside track of that. If you can imagine, I was looking on the second story window, and if you could imagine, the entire wall of the commander's office is made out of glass, one-way glass, and he can look out over into the Mexican border. He can see the people coming across. 24 lanes of traffic, bumper to bumper, as far as the eye can see. And it's that way 24 hours a day. And the agents are out there with the drug dogs and so forth, trying to find contraband and illegal aliens and all kinds of other weapons, etc. I got an opportunity to see some of the things that they've actually seized in the process. And he said, while you're looking out there, he said, take a look at that window. He showed me this dilapidated building just across the border, second-story window, a little curtain kind of with a crack in the middle. He said, now take my binoculars over here and take a look at that window. And I got the binoculars out and I looked at the window, and there I saw a drug dealer with his own binoculars looking down at us. And he said, that's the way it is. He said, all the time, 24 hours a day, there's always a drug dealer up there that are taking notes, and they're taking pictures, and they're doing everything they can to discern our tactics and strategies so as to be better smugglers and so forth. And I had a chance to see that. And then I went out into the real border, out into the desert of California, 110-degree heat, and I got a chance to see that open sieve that we call a border. And it was one of the most revealing things I've ever experienced. It really was a highlight of, if you want to call it that, of my time on the campaign trail, because I had a chance to meet with the Border Patrol people and Border Patrol Auxiliary and Customs out there on the field. And can you believe that our Border Patrol agents and Customs people do not even have night vision equipment? You know, most of the illegal traffic comes over the border at night. Duh! No night vision equipment. None whatsoever. They do not even have GPS equipment. Their commanded to be left empty. They are instructed not to fire. These people are subjected to some of the most violent criminals on the planet. Men who carry fully automatic weapons, who actually put bounties on Border Patrol and Customs personnel and other law enforcement folks in our country, who are bringing not only drugs and weapons and so forth, but also tens of thousands of illegal aliens into our country, the coyotes that bring them across, the drug dealers, the rogue elements of the Mexican police and the military, all of which are facilitating the traffic of illegal immigration into our country. And you would not believe the garbage along the border. If you can imagine a landfill just out in the middle of the countryside, that's what the border looks like with Mexico. It's a landfill. The debris, the garbage, the trash that the illegals bring over into our country is unspeakable. I can't describe it to you. You have to have a picture to get a sense of what we're dealing with down there. I found it interesting. You know, where's the Sierra Club and all the environmentalists when it comes to illegal immigration? Not a peep from them. I thought it was very interesting as I was driving back toward, after seeing that, and then getting back in the car, driving back to the San Diego area on the highway, leaving the border area, just a few miles from the border, nice paved road, a big sign on the side of the road, $1,000 fine for littering. I thought, yeah, that's our government at work. But that situation is a really a desperate situation. And I said when I was speaking out last year, I said, it's not going to matter whether Obama or McCain become president of the United States. Neither one of these gentlemen are going to do anything about illegal immigration. And that's exactly right. Mr. Obama's not going to do anything about it. Mr. McCain would not have had he been president. Because the open border scenario, again, as I said a moment ago, facilitates the New World Order agenda. You've got to understand that the powers that be, just like the bailout, I said, it doesn't really matter whether you elect John McCain or Barack Obama. If you think there's going to be any change to the economic policies of our country, you got another thing coming. The fact of the matter is, I think we're seeing that fulfillment. When John McCain was in the Senate on the campaign trail, he stopped his campaign, went back to Washington, D.C., and what did he do? He voted for the bailout. Mr. Obama did the same thing. He voted for the bailout. Now we've had a change of administrations. Now we have a Democrat administration, whereas we did have a Republican administration. Under the Republican administration, we had a bailout. Under the Democratic administration, we're going to have another bailout. Nothing has changed. The beat goes on. There's no real change in policy of anything of real importance. And until the American people began to realize that the titles Republican and Democrat and conservative and liberal mean very little, we're never going to get a handle on a solution in this country. We've got to come to recognize that both major parties and both ends of the political spectrum, whether it's conservative on the right or liberal on the left, are facilitating and advancing a New World Order agenda. In my church pulpit here just a couple Sunday nights ago, I brought a message that's going to be up on our internet website very soon, and we'll be having DVDs made up of it as well, if you'd like to get a copy. It's called What Every Christian Should Know About the New World Order. And I spoke for about an hour and, 40 or 45 minutes. And I went through copious notes and documentation showing our people here at Crossroad Baptist Church how that the agenda that is being perpetrated today by these two major parties has nothing to do with what we think is going on. And people will often complain, I write my congressmen and I write my senators and I email and I send faxes and I make phone calls and nothing changes. And I vote out the rascals in the Republican Party, and I put the Democrats in, and nothing changes. And then I get mad at the Democrats, and I vote them out, and I put the Republicans in, and nothing changes. And we've been doing this over and over again every election cycle. We get aggravated with one party or one candidate when we turn to the option on the other side of the aisle, and nothing changes. And the reason is because there is an agenda that supersedes both of our two political parties, that has nothing to do with freedom and national sovereignty and the independence of our country, and it has everything to do with the advancement of global government. Ever since the Council on Foreign Relations was created and the administration of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the Council on Foreign Relations has dominated every presidential administration from both sides of the aisle. And in the sermon I alluded to a moment ago, I went down the list of some of those that Mr. Obama has appointed to his administration, CFR members. Go back in the George W. Bush administration, CFR members. Go back to Bill Clinton, CFR members. Go back to George Bush the first, CFR members. I heard John McCain say just a few weeks ago, after Mr. Obama had more or less completed the essential spots, vacancies in his cabinet, I heard Mr. McCain say, well, I really like the appointments that Mr. Obama has made. And he said, in fact, if I had been elected president, most of these appointments I would have made myself. And you know what? He wasn't making it up. That's exactly what he would have done. If he'd have been president, he'd have picked basically the same people. Because there is, at the end of the day, a sinister desire on behalf of an elitist cabal to bring America into a globalist, as George Herbert Walker Bush titled it, New World Order. That's not our term, that's his term. And ever since, it's been talked about. In fact, just a few days ago, on the floor at Wall Street, Henry Kissinger was asked about the opportunity that Mr. Obama now has to implement change, et cetera, et cetera. And I put it up on the screen whenever I spoke, and then I gave the quote. I'm paraphrasing now. But Mr. Kissinger said, well, he said, what we have going on here for Mr. Obama is an opportunity for him to fulfill the goal of establishing a new world order. He said, this is not just a crisis, it's an opportunity. And that's the way elitists like Henry Kissinger look at our economic malaise. To them, it's not a crisis. To them, it is an opportunity. An opportunity to socialize our economic, our financial structure, to try and convince the American people to accept out of desperation what they would never accept out of conviction. And I'm reminded of what George W. Bush said in an interview that he had with Cal Thomas just a few days before he left office. And Cal wrote a piece, it appeared here in our Pensacola News Journal, and I clipped it out, highlighted it, and in fact, in the editorial that I put out today, I allude to this column that Cal wrote. And Cal was being very complimentary of the former president. He was not being critical by any means. He was speaking very approvingly of now the former president. And but he was quoting the president. He said, because, you know, there's some members of your party, Mr. President, that accuse you of being a socialist. With this economic recovery program that you have embraced, the nationalization of our banks, the nationalization of our banking institutions, of Wall Street, et cetera, that you're being called a socialist. And Mr. Bush said, well, he said, I still believe in those conservative principles and free markets and free enterprise and so forth. He said, I still believe that. He said, but when the Secretary of the Treasury and the Chairman of the Federal Reserve march into your office, again I'm paraphrasing, when they come into your office and they tell you that if we don't do this, we're going to have an economic disaster, he said, you got to choose between your principles and doing, what you can to avoid the disaster. Come on, what good who needs principles in an emergency? And I wrote in my column today, I said, what Mr. Thomas didn't realize that he was saying, but what he was doing, he was revealing the fact that when the head of the Federal Reserve says to the president, jump, the president says, how high? And I don't think he realized that he said, but what the American people should take note of is that whether it's the president or a member of Congress or a senator, there are not too many people in Washington, D.C. that have, first of all, the understanding to know what's going on in our country. And secondly, to have the guts to stand up and say, you're not going to do it on my watch, with the exception of I would say my friend, but I think in this audience I could probably say our friend, Congressman Ron Paul. Who just a few days ago introduced again a bill in the House of Representatives to dismantle the Federal Reserve. Guess what? As of the last day or two, the last time I checked, his bill is sitting in the document room in the House document room collecting dust and doesn't have one single co-sponsor. Where is Jeff Miller? We should ask him. Because the fact of the matter is, we are not going to solve our economic problems, and you're going to get a first-class explanation of this in just a couple of minutes when Jack comes and presents this program to you tonight. Until we recognize that the problem in our economics and our financial system is the fact that we are currently, and have been since 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created, we are under an unlawful, illegal, and I will say corrupt and criminal financial system in this country. All over the campaign trail, I said, look, you elect Chuck Baldwin president, and I tell you what, not only am I not going to put my approval and my support for any kind of a bailout for these international banksters, I'm going to instruct the Treasury, the Justice Department, to pursue criminal charges against these birds. They don't need to be padding their profits, sitting in their penthouses. They need to be spending time in the big house. Because they're criminals, they're thieves, they're crooks. The Federal Reserve is a corrupt criminal system. The Constitution is very clear. It gives to Congress the authority to manage, to control, to oversee our financial affairs. It tells the Congress in no uncertain terms that it is to coin money. You cannot coin a Federal Reserve note. Article 1 is very clear that no state shall coin anything except gold and silver. But But in 1913, with the creation of the Federal Reserve, and a group of a cabal of international bankers, most of whom are not even citizens of the United States of America, they're foreign bankers for the most part, decided that they would print paper money, they would incorporate a debt-based economy, and when they first started, and I don't remember this, but my parents did, they said, well, you see, the paper money is backed by gold and silver. And so we're going to give you this note, and it will be redeemable in gold or silver should you desire it. And there was a time in the early days that a citizen could go down to a bank and say, you know, I don't want this paper money anymore. I want the equivalent in gold or silver, and they would have honored that. I would challenge any of you to try that tomorrow. Go to your local bank and say, I want the equivalent of this in gold or silver, and see what happens. That was just a ruse in order to get the American people to accept the fiat currency. And after they got it in place and the American people began to get accustomed and used to it, they conveniently forgot the promise and took us off of the precious metal standard altogether, to the point that now then we are simply creating money out of thin air. The result of which is we are losing the greatest experiment in freedom and prosperity that the world has ever known. And it's not being done so much at the point of a bayonet, although that's coming, but it's being done through an economic and financial policy that's being foisted upon the American people by these elitists in Washington, D.C., New York City, London, etc. And we as a people have got to sooner or later come to grips with the fact that the longer we continue this charade of believing that somehow or another by replacing a Republican with a Democrat and a conservative with a liberal or vice versa is going to solve our problems, until we get to the real reality of what's going on and recognize that what we need in Washington and what we need in our state houses now, even more importantly, is not someone who says he's a conservative, or not one who says he is a Republican. And this may sound funny coming from someone such as myself, not even from someone who says he's a Christian. Every politician I know is a Christian, at least every 2 years. What we need in our state houses, in our local government, in Escambia County, in the city of Pensacola, in Tallahassee, in Washington, D.C., are men and women who understand, believe, and will support, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And I've said this all over America. I would rather vote for an unbeliever who will protect, defend, and support the Constitution than a believer who will not protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. The problem in government is the fact that we have men and women who have never read it, they haven't studied it, they know nothing about it, they have no desire, no intention on abiding by it. They do whatever they want to do, or more than that, sometimes even do what some are telling them to do. And we, the people of this country, still have the power and the wherewithal to change it. You say, I have people get very discouraged, and they say, well, you know, this seems to be so big, it's so monstrous, and you look at all the problems, you look at, you know, the gun issues that's coming up. You know, Barack Obama has been the greatest gun salesman since Bill Clinton. You know, and we got the gun issue that's real hot. It's a hot issue out there. We got the illegal immigration issue. We got the money issue. You know, we got the North American Union that's being created. We got the NAFTA superhighway coming up out of Mexico into the United States. And by the way, I've been to Kansas City, and I've seen the new headquarters. If you think this is all somebody's imagination, I challenge you to go to Kansas City, Missouri, and go downtown in the old section of Kansas City that was dilapidated, run down, and abandoned. But now is a revitalized, modern, growing, burgeoning city within itself, where all of the flags of all of the countries of the Americas fly on the flagpoles on both sides of the avenue, and they call it the Americas. And that's where the headquarters of the North American community, the North American Union, the NAFTA Superhighway, is all going to be right there in Kansas City. All the things are being built right now. You can go see it for yourself. It's an amazing creation of what's going on there. And that's happening. And we have so many of these issues that are happening all at once. And we can get very discouraged and think that there's nothing we can do, we the little people of America. And I want to tell you, the power and the strength of this country is still residing with we the people. It still does. The fact of the matter is, if we could just get the pulpits, the preachers in America, to start speaking out every Sunday, 52 weeks out of the year, and using the pulpits that God has given them to inform and inspire their people to standing for what is right, to standing for what is true, and dare I say to standing for what is godly, because in my view, the New World Order is not only anti-America, and it's not only anti-freedom, it's anti-Christ. If the preachers in America would stand and do what is theirs to do, we could turn this ship of state around tomorrow. The problem is the preachers are lulled to sleep, as are so many of the people. But I want to tell you, one of the encouraging things to me is let me bring this to a close to give Jack all his time, is that there is a growing sense and a growing awareness around the country that we cannot continue on the same path much longer. I have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. What I do and what Jack is doing and what so many of you are doing is not so much for me or for our generation. What we're doing, and the reason I did what I did last year, and the reason I write those columns, and the reason that I travel around the country and speak, and the reason that I'm out there on the forefront of this is not because I can't find anything else to do and I'm bored. It's because I look into the faces of my children and my grandchildren, and I don't want them growing up in tyranny and oppression. And if we, the members of our generation, if we don't stand up now, that's exactly what's going to happen to the next generation or two. They are not going to know a free and independent country as we have known. I do thank God for the John Birch Society. I do thank God for the New American Magazine. In my opinion, and I've said this all over, the best news magazine in the country is the New American Magazine. If you're not subscribing to the New American already, you've got to get. Do you have applications here tonight? Do you have subscription? In the back. If you don't do anything else tonight, don't leave without signing up to get the New American Magazine. It's the best out there. And I thank God for Jack and for all of you folks here in the local area and the John Birch Society that are working hard to protect the freedoms of our country. And I'm proud to serve alongside of you and to be in the fight with you.